Hello, Meg Teach Tuck. This is my sports coaching assignment 1 on a coach and their roles and responsibilities. The first thing, a coach is a person who is involved in the direction or instruction and training of a sports team or of a specific individual, helping them to develop in their sport that they are accomplished in, having quite a good understanding of the game that they are trying to coach. Some of the roles that a coach has. The role of a coach is to create the right conditions for learning to happen and to find ways of motivating athletes to help them improve in their game. The first role is to be a counsellor. This is resolving emotional problems on the basis that sharing anxieties can be both relieving and reassuring to the player. An example of a coach who is a good counsellor is Eddie Jones, the England rugby coach. He has a personal relationship with all his players, so if they ever have any personal issues or anything along those lines, then they know they can go to him to solve it. The second role is an educator. A coach provides a systematic instruction, providing something new for their player that they are teaching, the learner. An example of this would be a coach of a college team, so you could use Jamie Laird, telling the players a new system or formation when they first come into the college so they can understand it in the first game. Another example, which everybody knows, is Antonio Conte, the Chelsea manager. He had to educate his whole team recently in changing his formation. When they were playing 4 at the back, they were struggling to start the season, and he had to teach his team throughout training his new 5 at the back formation with 3 centre backs. He loves playing so much at his time at Juventus and now playing really well with at Chelsea. So he had to work with his players in training, coaching them in how to play this effective 5-2-3 formation. The next role is an innovator. An innovator is a coach who introduces new ideas and new methods to help an individual or team. An example of a coach who is an innovator, you can use the example of Antonio Conte before, because he has come up with these tactics and this formation that works so effectively. But from American football, which is a new sport to use, there is the Green Bay Packers head coach, Mike McCarthy. He is an innovator because he has to come up with his own attacking plays. Every game he has to do this to fool the defense that he is playing against, so he can create a run, make a player free, make the wide receivers free, to help them gain an advantage in the game. As coach, he then has to tell the quarterback this, which he then provides to the players of what they remember in training and what they provide the information for. The last role I'm going to cover is the coach should be a role model to their player that they are training. A coach who is a role model serves as a model in a particular behavioural or social role for another person to emulate. The way you conduct yourself whilst in the presence of your athletes provides an example of how they should behave and a lead in the way in how you should behave as a player. A coach who is an example of this is the role model Sachin Tendulkar in cricket. He is the coach of the IPL side, Kerala Blasters. He is arguably the greatest batter that there has ever been in cricket. Plus, for India, he did bowl a bit too. He's the only player to ever reach 100 hundreds. Therefore, all batsmen look up to him, especially in India. He's almost seen like a god. So if you have Sachin Tendulkar as your coach, all players would look up to him and want to be like him. And off the pitch as well is key as a role model. And again, Sachin Tendulkar never put a foot wrong. You've got all these cheating allegations and everything like that. He's never a part of it. He always stuck to the rules and to the books. The next thing I'm going to look at is the responsibilities of a coach. A coach is actually responsible for training the athletes in the sport that they are so good at coaching, and they can analyse performances, instruct relevant skills onto the player, and can provide encouragement and stuff like that. The first responsibility I'm going to look at is health and safety. Coaches have a duty of care, legal obligation imposed, so requiring them to adhere to certain standards of reasonable care while performing any acts that could possibly harm others. The risks to participants are intrinsic, could possibly intrinsic, so there are safety hazards, which is a physical aspect of your body, and then there are extrinsic risks as well, which is something outside your body which could cause harm. An example of a coach who is key to looking at health and safety is rugby coaches, mainly at a non-elite level, because they're a lot of the time the only adult which is key on the side of the pitch. So on a Sunday morning at their kids' games and stuff like that, it's key that they oblige on the pitch by the rules and also off the pitch with safety standards and stuff like that. So then their players that they're looking after are safe whilst playing. The next responsibility they have is a responsibility of being a professional conduct. So as a coach, your conduct and behaviour determines the current and future experiences of the athletes you are in control of. A true professional has knowledge and experience and top qualifications and also can look the part. However, that isn't always so key. They respect all abilities and they respect and support the officials which are on the pitch, which will always promote fair play. Individual sports also have codes of conduct which must be followed. An example of this is cricket. There are so many like cricket rules that aren't written rules, but they're just being a good, fair player of the game, which on a Saturday or Sunday you don't necessarily have a manager on the side if you're playing men's cricket, but you do have your captain who should always lead by example. My dad once was coached our Ilchester side, and he once got pulled up on his professional conduct when we were only a team of under 11s, maybe even under 10s at the time. Should have been beating this team that we lost 3-0 to, Merritt Wanderers. And after the game, he released his anger in ways he hadn't done before by shouting at our players and saying language which wasn't bad, but some people would see as unfair on a bunch of 10-year-olds that had just had a poor game. So that is professional conduct, which he slipped up at that time and then had to improve on over the years. The next responsibility we would go for is they need a knowledge of the coaching environment that they are in. When planning a coaching session, the coach needs to know about the area he is training in. The equipment, the location, and all other essentials need to be known by the coach because he is responsible for the safety of the players and their well-being. An example of a coach who has to do and have key knowledge of coaching environment is Meg Teach Tuck. When she is teaching in like the first week, when the first years are coming in and they need to know all the new students coming up, she needs to have good knowledge of the area around. So if any questions are asked to her, she needs a good knowledge of the area and where she can send people. The last responsibility of a coach is equal opportunities. Coaching and playing should be accessible to all without prejudice. They need to put aside any discriminatory feelings they may have towards race, age, gender, religion or ability, and all their players should be given an equal chance to play, no matter what the result. Example of coaches who need to give equal opportunities includes teachers at a secondary school or primary school level. In sports like football and rugby, where it is so popular, and you can have a wide range of abilities turn up to training that all want to play in matches, sometimes, yes, you do have to pick just the best team and who you want to win. However, as a coach, you need to explain to the players and make sure they are being given an equal opportunity. Personally, yes, this is a responsibility of the coach. However, I think ability at certain levels of football, ability should always come above equal opportunities, because those that are that could be of an elite standard should be given that opportunity to then thrive and go on to the next level, rather than someone who is playing for participation. The next thing a coach should be doing is his skill. The skills that a coach can actually have. So a coaching skill is like a set of attributes which a coach must have to increase his quality as a coach towards the player. Having these skills can just help benefit the player on the pitch and off the pitch. The first thing a coach should have is good communication skills. I believe this is the most important skill required from a coach. Good verbal communication to a player has to be appropriate to the performer. And then there is also good non-verbal communication too, which can help push the player on. An example of a coach who has good communication is Tony Pulis, the West Brom manager. Every game you can see him shouting at his players in a responsible way on the pitch, giving them encouragement and making sure they understand what he expects from them on the pitch, so then they can go on. And because he is so strict as a manager, he looks at it and realises how determined and disciplined the player has to be, which sometimes shouting at them is needed. The next skill a coach should have is organisation. A coach should know how many participants are going to take part, ensure that the activities are appropriate for that amount of participants, deciding what equipment they will need prior to the event, ensuring it is available and ready for use on the day, ensuring that the facility where the session is taking place is booked well in advance and that they are aware of its safety procedures, ensuring at the end of the session that the facility and equipment are left as they were when the session started to help with safety and organisation for other coaches, ensuring that they have clear methods of stopping and starting the session, which can be discussed with the participants at the start of the session. These are just organisational skills which can be beneficial for all of the participants and the coach. A type of coach who will need that top organisation skill at an elite level is Trevor Bayliss, the England cricket team coach. This is because they are often travelling around the world, playing in different continents at different countries. This needs good organisation from the coach, because he needs to know what different training sessions to adapt in the different conditions that they will be playing in. He needs to then obviously look at where they are and what country and adapt that session to the players that he's got in those weather conditions, so it can benefit his team best when it actually comes to playing. The next skill they should have is good analysing skills. In order for a coach to improve their team, they must watch their own team as well as other teams. Therefore, a coach must have a good ability to observe and analyse, making good tactical judgments. A coach must have a clear idea about how they would like their team to perform, allowing the coach to clearly observe any faults that they may encounter. They must also analyse the personality and motivation and other sort of psychological aspects rather than the physiological aspects that can affect performance. A key coach who is good at analysing is Sir Dave Brailsford, the team manager at Sky Cycling. He analyses almost every single day the performance of his athletes on the bikes that they use, and he actually analyses the bike performance itself, because he believes that every single little tiny improvement is key. Every 1% you improve will one day add up to improving it by 15%, which is the difference between winning and losing. This is the philosophy he goes by and teaches his athletes. Therefore, every tiny little improvement is a massive gain in winning the next Tour de France or helping Team GB in the Olympics.